Food prices in the U.S. soared to record heights in February 2022.
People should be worrying more about soaring food prices than oil prices. Fink saying, quote,
billions of dollars are needed to prevent a global food crisis.
Global hunger levels are at a new high.
Global food crisis.
Global food crisis.
Food crisis.
The food crisis, obviously.
Food crisis.
Food crisis.
We are in the midst of a devastating global food crisis. Conflict, climate change, the COVID-19 pandemic, and soaring food prices have led to a steep rise in hunger in countries across the world. Can you imagine a company that has used this crisis to increase profits by 86%, a company that has risen 13 places on the Fortune rankings list? Yes, it's hard to believe, but 4 ABCD businesses have made huge profits during the food crisis. The annual report released by a company shows that in 2021, the net earnings reached a record $5.19 per share, a year-on-year increase of 45%. The adjusted segment operating profit reached $4.8 billion, a year-on-year increase of 38%. And the return on invested capital reached 10%. The three main businesses that generate the most profits are agricultural services and oilseeds, $2.8 billion, Carbohydrate Solutions, $1.3 billion, and Nutritional Products, $70 million. Against the backdrop of the gloomy global economic situation, the closure of large and medium-sized enterprises, or even fallen into difficulties, Company A has performed very well. With its rapidly growing profits and total assets, Company A ranked 38th on 2022's Fortune 500. The ranking climbed up 13 spots. Company B's annual report shows that net income in 2021 reached $2.1 billion, an increase of 86% year-on-year. And total assets reached $23.8 billion with an increase of $160 million. Agriculture-related business net sales reached $43.6 billion, up 45% year-on-year, and gross profit reached $2.5 billion, up 34% year-on-year. Company D's annual report shows that in 2021, net sales reached $49.6 billion, up 47.7% year-on-year. Pre-tax income reached $864 million, up 39.4% year-on-year. And total assets reached $23.6 billion, up 1.2% year-on-year. Net sales in the value chain segment, which includes grains, oilseeds, juices, freight, etc., rose by 56.8% year-on-year. And net sales in the marketing segment, which includes cotton, coffee, sugar, etc., increased by 27.8% year-on-year. For various reasons, Company C announced in 2020 that it would stop publishing quarterly and annual financial reports. However, according to a Reuters report, the data of Company C is as dazzling as the first three companies. Company C's turnover in 2021 reached $134.4 billion, a year-on-year increase of 17%. They are the four major food companies in the world: ADM, Bunge, Cargill, and LDC. The first three are all American companies. The origins of ADM can be traced back to 1902, and it's headquartered in the United States now. ADM operates more than 270 plants and 420 crop procurement facilities worldwide. ADM has always been known for its focus on research and development, and supports its continuous development through chemical research. Therefore, ADM is also an international grain merchant, more like an oil giant. Bunge was founded in the Netherlands in 1818 and moved its headquarters to the United States in 1999. It is the oldest international major grain merchant. Currently, Bunge has more than 450 plants around the world, and it is the fourth largest grain export merchant in the world. It owns large farms in South America, sells fertilizers to farmers, buys grains from farmers, and then exports them to other countries, or further processes the grains. Cargill is the world's largest grain exporter and trader, founded in 1865. It's headquartered in the United States, and the largest private capital company of America. It has the largest granary in the United States, from food production, packaging, to every link of the market, all in one hand. The company's business spans 5 continents and 66 countries, making it the largest in the world. Louis Dreyfus was founded in 1851 in France and is today headquartered in Netherlands. It's the only one of the ABCDs not headquartered in the United States. It pioneered and developed the European grain export trade. Louis Dreyfus is the third largest grain export company in the world. The company makes up about 10% of the world's agricultural product trade flows. And it is the world's largest cotton and rice trader. For many years, grain prices have been controlled by the ABCDs. They hold more than 80% of the world's trading rights and can influence global food prices by virtue of their channel control over the upstream and downstream industrial chains. Not only that, they can be said to have monopolized the entire food and agricultural industry chain. From the farmland to the dining table, one-stop control has been carried out, affecting the daily life of more than 7 billion people around the world. Of course not, even though they have already made huge profits from their food-related businesses, these business giants will never stop trying to extract more from this crisis. They turned their attention to biofuels. In October 2021, ADM signed a memorandum of understanding with American biofuels company Gevo to collaborate on the production of sustainable aviation fuel and low-carbon hydrocarbon fuels using ethanol and isobutanol. In September 2021, Bunge formed a joint venture with U.S. energy giant Chevron to double its bioethanol production capacity from 7,000 tons per day to 14,000 tons by the end of 2024. In October 2020, Cargill launched the construction of a biofuel plant in Belgium. The plant, which cost $150 million, is one of the largest facilities in Europe for burning biofuels. The plant began operations in June of this year and is scheduled to produce 13,000 liters of biodiesel per year. In August 2021, Cargill formed a joint venture with Love's family of companies, a U.S. energy company, and opened a new plant which is planned to produce 190,000 tons of biodiesel per year. Biofuels have a direct and indirect impact on food supply. Biofuels directly reduce the food supply when they use ingredients that are used to produce food, such as corn. Even if higher raw material prices lead producers to expand supplies, this can still lead to a reduction in food supplies, because efforts to increase production of one crop often affect the availability of other food crops. For example, farmers learned that they would get more bang for their money by planting corn, which produces ethanol, so they planted corn instead of soybean or wheat. In short, crops for biofuels take up land that would otherwise be used to produce other foods and reduce food supplies. And as food supplies shrink, prices rise and farmers seek to reclaim new land. The greenhouse gas emissions from farming new land will more than offset the savings from using so-called low-carbon biofuels. Private capital is firmly in control of the world's food lifeline and can even be said to determine whether people in developing and poor countries have food to eat and survive. But the first consideration for businessmen in any action they take is always, can I make a higher profit? The big three are American companies, so what did the US government do? In December 2021, the US Department of Energy announced more than $100 million in funding for biofuels research and technology development. In the same month, the US Environmental Protection Agency announced a series of measures to increase production of biofuels. In June 2022, the USDA awarded $700 million in subsidies to 195 plants that produce biofuels, of which $640 million went to corn fuel ethanol producers. ADM received $50 million alone. On June 24, 2022, The Guardian reported that U.S. Deputy Agriculture Secretary Jewel Bronaugh said she would continue to promote biofuel production despite growing concerns about the global food crisis.
You know, we all blame the food inflation for the price rise that we witness in the supermarkets. But in reality, it is not the price rise as far as food prices are concerned. It is the greed of the of the companies or the large corporations which is actually driving the prices high.
Widespread hunger is not a technical problem that stems from insufficient production, rather, it is a political economic problem. It still depends on the will of those world food controllers. However, what do they really care about?